Hello everyone, Richard here, and today we are finally going to finish off our Onirim playthroughs with my final assessment and ranking of all of the Onirim expansions featured in the second edition package. Now, I know I skipped over the Little Incubus micro expansion, which was a bit of a shame since the guy is such a cutie. However, I don't really care much for this expansion. It basically just feels like something I'd do myself if I was getting annoyed with the game I was having. So there's that. But with that being said, we've wasted enough time. Let's get into the ranking for the expansions. My least favorite expansion in Onirim 2nd Edition, and when I say least favorite, I don't mean horrible, it's just my opinion as to what I would like to play with. My least favorite expansion is the Glyphs. And this is because it's basically just more. It's a way to elongate your game with more doors and a new type of location card, and I just am not really excited with this one. Now, I don't dislike that it pushes Onirim into a longer game, because some other expansions can do that if you are prone to analysis paralysis, like I am. I just don't find the general gameplay of Onirim exciting enough to repeat for that long. Don't get me wrong, I love Onirim, but the sweet spot of 8 doors is just enough for me, and any more gameplay like that without any significant variation is not really what I enjoy in the game, and it kind of comes off as tedious to a degree. However, like I said, it's not horrible, it's just not for me. The next expansion we have here is Crossroad and Dead End cards. One of the things I like the most about Onirim is the surprising decision space it creates with just your simple hand of 5 location cards. And the Dead End cards kind of remove that fun for me. Onirim is a very random game at its core, even though there's a lot you can do with it, and having cards that clog up your deck and limit your decision space just isn't an interesting way to get around that swinginess you can have with each game. It just seems like an arbitrary limitation, sort of, like playing the piano handcuffed. It's not extremely restrictive, but it's inconvenient enough to not be fun. And that's my biggest criticism against the Crossroads and Dead Ends. It's not fun. It's not fun to have your hand limited, even though it does make the game a little more difficult. The only reason keeping this expansion above the Glyphs is it does provide some gameplay variation, but honestly, that's it. And the Crossroad cards just kind of feel thrown into this package. Like, I feel they should have been put in with the Book of Steps, but maybe that's just me. All in all, I don't hate it, of course. I just rarely will play with this one, even mixed in with other expansions. Okay, now we're going to make a huge leap in favorability, because after those last 2 expansions, these next ones are expansions I can always find myself throwing into a game or 2 here or there. So here at the 5th spot, we have the Dreamcatchers expansion. Now, I just need to go on record for saying that in terms of creativity, this probably takes the first spot on my list, just because it's such an ingenious way to use the limbo pile. However, I do have to say that I find this expansion kind of fiddly. Even if it doesn't have a lot of rules, the way certain situations crop up that leave you asking in what order you're allowed to do things kind of kills the momentum of the game you're having. Same with the way you can look through the deck just to shuffle it and then take a door card that's in a Dreamcatcher. That just seems weird to me. There's just a lot to consider when playing with this one, and that's great. It certainly does its job as one of the meatier expansions. It's just hard to always try to play with it if I want to get a quick game in, unlike the rest of the other expansions. Still, it's very good and I really like it, although I do have to say, some people say this expansion alleviates some of the shuffling you have to do in the base game. However, I find most of the time I was shuffling slightly less than average, so I'm not sure if it's going to save the game for you if you hate shuffling. I just get the free app at that point. Next up we have Happy Dreams and Dark Premonitions. This is another meaty expansion that is basically designed to kick you down when you're up and create a tighter game. I like the way the tension ramps up when you start to acquire those doors later into your deck, and your draw pull is just getting thinner and thinner, it's a good spin on the tension the base game can bring, and it feels difficult in a rewarding way to overcome. I also like the customizability with this expansion. You can throw in as many Happy Dreams as you'd like to make it easier or harder, and you can just choose the dark premonitions you want to play with to change the difficulty. There's a lot of variability in this one. And while I'm not always up for a difficult game of Onirim, and I'm not likely to play with this expansion as much as the other ones I like, Happy Dreams and Dark Premonitions is still a great way to get the more aggressive side of Onirim to come out. From aggressive to relaxing, we have up next the door to the Oniverse. There's not a lot to say about this expansion. It definitely makes the game more of a breeze than if you were playing with any of the other expansions. However, I find the powers granted to you by the denizens to be super helpful and fun to use, and that system of rallying them is a nice and not too punishing trade-off. It's also endlessly cool to have characters from the other Oniverse games come in and help you. It just makes the game feel very pleasant. And on top of all of this, the denizens are a great expansion to use in tandem with other more challenging expansions. And even though they do add a lot of rules, and I don't see why you couldn't have symbols on the cards telling you what each denizen does, I did get used to how all the powers worked after a bit of play. So I would highly recommend this one if you just want to mess around with the game and have a lot of fun. Alright, we're up to the second to last expansion for Onirim, and that is the Book of Steps, Lost and Found. This one really grew on me in a surprising way. At first, I found its challenge to be a little annoying, but then I found the decisions it created to be really interesting, and the tension of trying to maximize playing cards while also minimizing discarding just hit the right spot for me. And then on top of that, the actual book of spells in this expansion is such a great add-on. The way it uses the discard pile to cast these powers that allow you to manipulate your hand and door line feels very satisfying and sets you up for some really cool combos. You can even use those nightmare cards to help you out if you have an unfavorable hand. It really makes the puzzle aspect of the game shine and adds enough flexibility to the point where the challenge feels more manageable, unlike maybe the crossroads and dead ends or even dark premonitions. The only problem I've ever run into while playing this expansion was forgetting I can only acquire doors in a specific order and accidentally discovering a different type of door because I was too excited. The game's just that good. It's a good sign. Really like it. Don't underestimate this one. And finally, there's only one expansion that's left, and that's the Towers. I think I might have stated in my other videos that this one is my favorite expansion. I'm not sure, maybe I erroneously said that it was the Dreamcatchers, but this one has for sure always been my favorite expansion. And that's just because of the really seamless way it integrates into the base game of Onirim. It may not be as challenging or as deep of an expansion as the ones that come before it. In fact, I think it's probably the lightest and easiest expansion to learn aside from the glyphs. But there's just something really great in its simplicity that mimics the magic of the base game of Onirim, so much so that I feel like this expansion is kind of a must-have. Sure, it can make the base game easier with the tower powers. However, it's easy to make the game harder by just playing with the harder variant featured in the rulebook. In fact, I recommend playing that way even though I didn't play with that variant in my video. It's hard to go into why this one is my favorite since there's not a lot to talk about with it, so all I really can say is that it just works. Alright, and let's finally cap off this video with some expansion pairings I have played and do recommend. I'd say my favorite combination is probably Door to the Oniverse and Book of Steps. Even though the denizens can go with the glyphs pretty easily, I find that ditching the spells in the Book of Steps and instead using the denizens in its place is really fun, even though it takes away a bit of the challenge from the usual game. Next up is Dark Premonitions and the glyphs. Even though the glyphs is my favorite, I did do a Hail Mary playthrough with the Happy Dreams, Dark Premonitions, and the glyphs, and it was actually kind of fun. The new location cards give a bit of leeway with the Dark Premonitions, and Happy Dreams help mitigate the challenge as well. And I feel like the Dark Premonitions add that extra spice that the glyphs were missing. Alright, and so I think these two pairings work the most, with the Towers and the Denizens being the most modular expansions of Onirim 2nd Edition, and Crossroads and Dead Ends being the least modular, just because the Dead End cards detract too much from the cool stuff that happens in other expansions, and there isn't really a lot of interplay with those expansions and that one expansion. Okay, and that's it, folks. Sorry for the late uploads, life is just hectic right now, but I hope I can somewhat get back to dedicating some videos to uploads. I'm probably done with Onirim a bit right now. As much as I love the game, I just kind of need to take a break, but I have a generous game library and I'll be taking a look to see what would make a nice video up next. Maybe another Oniverse game, or if you guys want to see something that I might end up having, I'll try cobbling it together for you. Okay, have a great day, folks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.